Welcome to the Beats and Balance podcast, where rhythm, resistance, and rest fuel creative survival and collective healing. Today's guest is Millicent "Millie" Ansah, a Jersey City-based educator, poet, and community organizer. She's the founder of Mocha Mic with Millie and host of Poetic Pages where Black poets speak, curating intentional spaces that nourish Black artists, families, and community through poetry, creativity, and healing.
So today's conversation, we're going to talk about the power of safe space, what it means to lead with joy and intention, and how poetry, community, and healing all live side by side. Thank you so much, Millie, for being with us today. Let's get into it. Let's start off with, can you share a little bit about like how you started Mocha with Millie or Mocha Mic with Millie and what the inspiration for that was?
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for having me. So I created Mocha Mic with Millie in 2022, and I created it because I am a poet. I actually got back into poetry during the pandemic. You know, it was just like a refuge for me to just share how I was feeling. There was a lot of uncertainty during that time, a lot of confusion, and I just fell back in love with it after not doing poetry for so many years. And then once, things started to open back up, we had to have on the masks, and I was attending different open mics, just trying to like find safe things to do while we had to kind of social distance. But also, I just didn't know there was a poetry community in Jersey City where I live, or just at all. I just had not been a part of it for so long. And when I was going into different spaces, I just noticed that there was just a lack of diversity as far as people who look like me, but also people who are on different poetic levels, meaning that people who weren't necessarily published, who don't have a book, who haven't been on stages, been on tours. Just there were some places that, because of the lack of diversity, felt like uncomfortable and just felt polarizing in its own way. So after attending many spaces and then attending some spaces where I did see some diversity, but there was just something lacking, either not feeling very comfortable, feeling like, man, this is my first time. Am I going to get to share on the mic? Or is it like, I don't know you, so you can't share on the mic type of vibe? And I was like,
like gatekeeping
and definitely like cliquish behavior, which I think can exist anywhere just because people can sometimes be skittish if they don't know the person, which I get. But I just was like, you know what? I can create my own space where it's like, if it's your first time, if I don't know you, no one there knows you, you are welcomed to share. And feeling like you're at home, like a home out of home, was really important to me. Because I did a lot of community work before in Jersey City, and I had worked with a lot of different nonprofits, when I was creating this space, it wasn't too hard to kind of get people in the door, but it was definitely different creating this space, because I was like, okay, I have to get a space. I have to be able to try to pay features. And it was interesting trying to figure that all out because everything had been not for profit. But with creating this space, I have truly been able to give Black voices primarily because I lead with that.
Very cool.
Space to just be able to truly feel like they're at home and that they're safe. That's
super important. I was going to say, you're from Jersey City, like born and raised?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Nope. I am from Brooklyn, New York.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I grew up partly in Jersey. So I know Jersey City has changed a lot, from when I was younger until now. It's been super gentrified. So I was going to ask about how that has impacted finding spaces to host events. Is it accessible to even be able to find a venue? Because I think the issue that people have is it's not that there isn't a need or a want for these events, but it can be hard to actually secure space, especially when you don't have a big budget where you're trying to do something that you're not selling tickets for or trying to make it accessible to folks. So if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've actually lived in Jersey City for going on 11 years now.
Okay.
So it's been a while. So I definitely have seen the changes in 11 years. I mean, when I first got here, Journal Square did not look the way it looked. There have probably been, that I can just count right now, 13 buildings erected since I've been here. And I know there's been more, right? but like 13 buildings erected that I can think of. And I primarily lived in West Side, Jersey City. So by Lincoln Park, not too far from NJCU or St. Peter's, kind of like over there in that area. It's been really interesting to see like the demographic change. Like a lot of people that look like us have left for either South Jersey, down south, Philly, just because they're trying to be able to live. They're trying to be able to live, and try to live well and find place to live. So with that change, because Mocha Mic with Millie is on its second year, it's definitely been interesting trying to find spaces. And I try to work with spaces that are Black owned and or, minority owned businesses, because I believe that it's important to highlight these places and try to, show that they exist so that they can get foot traffic. So it's been really interesting because I've been able to really help a lot of places, get that spotlight.
Very cool.
Yeah, I feel like if you really look, you can find the spaces, but because I try to keep my events in West Side, Bergen Lafayette, and Greenville, which are historically underserved, areas in Jersey City as opposed to downtown, the JC Heights, it does become a little bit difficult. But I work with a lot of the same people and we have a great partnership, so it's been really great.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I know it can be, that part can be challenging from throwing my own events. And then the other thing that can be difficult is like, you're trying to create space for sometimes Black people specifically or people of color. And then when you're doing in these areas that become gentrified, the audience or the people coming through can like screw that demographic up. So has that been like an issue for you? Like how are you able to navigate like being able to center Black folks and like underserved communities while dealing with so many different types of people coming into the neighborhood, wanting to go to these spaces, which can be good because it's like you want, like you said, you want people to learn about these venues and like spend their money, but also you still want to create like a safe space. When I was throwing events upstate New York in my hometown, that was like a huge issue. I was like, I'm throwing events for free because I was like, I wanted to do for Black folks. But then it was like all these like non-Black folks showing up and I was like, well, y'all gonna have to start paying because you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
This wasn't the intended audience. Like, so like, I wonder how that works for you.
That's so funny. No, I know that's right. Like, y'all got it.
Yeah, like what? Like, this is reverse. Like I'm doing work for free for y'all. Like what? No,
absolutely. So what's really interesting is that I found that in creating a poetic space, I think with like any type of art or discipline, there's a lot of people who are trying to do what you do, right? Either create a space, trying to get people to come out to their poetry event, their musical event, whatever have you. So sometimes that can cause, unfortunately, like a bit of competitiveness. I personally don't subscribe to that because I just feel like when I look in a mirror, that's who I need to compete with. However, everyone's different. So basically it's very, it's just a lot of people. But I've found that I've gotten a lot more support from people outside of Jersey City than in Jersey City, like attendees rather, who are poets. Now, there have been people who have definitely supported, but I think, things shift. And because a lot more people are like, hey, I can do this too, which is great. I believe I'm not the type of person I'll be like, I'm doing it, you shouldn't do it, because I feel like there's a space for everyone and not everyone's going to feel safe in a space. So if you're creating a space where a particular group of people feel comfortable, that's great because everyone deserves to have community. This is what it's all about. But I do have like quite a diverse group of people who come through. Whether they're from South Jersey, I've had people who come from Philly, Connecticut, just to come through and support because they believe in like my mission. But I haven't had as many people from like downtown Jersey City where demographics don't necessarily represent us and or the Heights who come through. Maybe they want to be in their area or go to New York or go to Hoboken, which is, depending on which side they're closer to, but they don't come as much. And I also think, unfortunately, that when we look at the demographics of a place like Jersey City, there are less Black people that live in Jersey City than other, groups of people. So sometimes the support just isn't always there, whether intentional or not intentional. But I'm truly a believer of like the vibe is inside. That's what I like to say on my mic. The vibe is inside and whoever is supposed to be there will be there. And people know that it's a Black space. That is a part of my mission. It was created to amplify Black artists and emerging artists. So if you're with it, come through. If you're not, don't come through. But know that that's always centered.
Got you. I love that. That's what we do at Beats and Balance too. It's like we're for everybody, but like these are the folks we center. So if you have an issue with any of these people, you're not gonna have a good time.
No, that's right.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about some of the events that you host. I know you do like different workshops also, not just the open mic night. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? And like you do like work with children and things like that?
Yeah, definitely. So I am a teacher. So I've been a teacher for over 15 years. I've worked primarily with early childhood because I just love the little ones. I truly believe it's beautiful to just build an early foundation where there's a love of learning early on. And I'm all about that. I haven't in my career worked as much with children who look like me. That's just kind of like where I haven't ended up as much in my career. So when I think about what my mom used to say, who's passed, she used to say, you need to leave this world better than how you entered it.
That's beautiful.
In any way that you can. And you have to choose the way in which you do that. So I just feel like in my community, since I'm not always able to do that with my job, I need to work with the children who look like me or the children in my community. So if so it can't be like I'm giving everything to other communities, because how am I helping to foster greatness and foster love and early foundation of learning in other children? So with my volunteer work, I started doing a lot of that early on, a little bit after the pandemic, working with a few different organizations that deal with food insecurity and working with young mothers. And then I pivoted to a lot of work with Jersey City Free Public Library, where I do a lot of free children programming, whether it's about poetry or sensory and wellness and art or STEM education. It's free. It's for the children. They really love it. They look forward to it. It helps build a community. A lot of the events are centered around emotional regulation. Like there's so many things happening now that children experience as young as, 6. Like I have a 6-year-old. There are things that she experiences that, perhaps you and I have never experienced because we didn't grow up with social media the way that it is now. The pressures, the introduction to certain things. So learning different ways of like trying to calm down and like, hey, these crazy things are happening. You can journal, you can do art. Like, let's get back outside. Like, I think that's so important to introduce to children and just let them know that there are other people that care about them in the community. So that's been really, really rewarding. I didn't know it was going to be what it is now, where I'm, teaching so many workshops, like either with the library or the Department of Recreation. But it's been really rewarding. They really enjoy it. Like they see me outside and they're like, hey, are you going to be back? And I'm like, I don't know when. So it's really been great. But I think that like we, as adults, like we don't have to take it on ourselves to like really, I guess, do so much work in like raising the kids. But I think that we have a part of it. Like something that's been lost is a lot of community and a lot of community building and a lot of collectivism,
Yeah. No, that's real. Hearing you talk about that reminds me of my childhood. And like, I had a single mom, so I was put in like every community activity possible. And I wondered like if that still happens, because like the kids now, all I see is them on screens, like video games or on their phone, or I'd never really see like kids riding bikes outside like we used to. So I think that's huge. I think the biggest thing that the world right now is missing is like that sense of community and like human interaction. Everything has become so like individual that like the sense of humanity, I feel like, is being lost. So I think that's huge. I think that's like, sometimes I feel like adults are too far gone, but the kids, hopefully you can still save the kids,
Absolutely.
And even working in spaces that are not predominantly Black or have a few Black kids, even for like if it's just one, to have a Black teacher or a Black person in that space is can be life-changing for them. So that's still super important. I went to boarding school, and like the Black dean, I was in her office every day, all the time, just like as a safe space. So I know what that can feel like to be isolated. So yeah, I think everything that you're doing sounds like super important. super, I'm sure, rewarding for you because it's like intersection of like art, but then also you're doing like healing work and then community work. But how do you stay centered yourself? Like how do you avoid burnout when you're doing so much and giving so much to others? Even though it's rewarding, like how do you still make time for yourself?
I have like some really amazing friends who they remind me to slow down. They ask
Mm,
me, when am I resting? They are so in tune, many of them, with some self care practices that it's so great because oftentimes I'll ask them if they're okay, and they'll be like, "Are
mm,
you okay?" And then we kind of like ping pong and remind each other, like, "Hey, you're like pouring into me. I need to pour into you." And
mm,
it's so beautiful to have that because sometimes we just get so caught up on, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do this, I need to do that. And the type of society that we live in, the society is all about work, work,
mm,
work. Even when you're doing great things in the community, when you're doing open mics, you're doing, workshops, or you have a podcast to amplify people who are doing amazing things, sometimes we're just so goal minded that we forget to like
mm,
sometimes pause and just like give ourselves some kudos. So I try to do that. I journal. I do
mm,
write poetry. Like I do write a lot. What I started to do, and I started to do this years ago. Actually, it's funny. I don't remember the teacher's name, but in high school, I had a great English teacher. I can't remember her name, but she said, you need to write love letters to yourself.
mm,
And I was like we were just like, oh, this lady's like weird. She's like a hippie. Like, what is she talking about? Right? Like, we're just like,
mm,
she's tripping out. But she was like, you need to write love letters to yourself. You need to write advice to like the advice you would want to hear someone give you if you're feeling down, right?
mm,
And we would write the letters, we would put it in the envelope, and we would like store it somewhere we would remember and open those letters again later. Like when you feel down, or like when you need to pick me up, or when life just feels like it's in shambles and you just don't know what to do. So I've written so many, and that's just so helpful for me when I'm just going through things and when I just feel like, man, I didn't succeed this. Because, as a planner, like I'm very methodical, I'm very intentional. I pre-plan ahead of
mm.
time because I'm just so busy. But those letters definitely help me get through things. And also, I've learned that no is a complete sentence.
Facts. That's huge.
So I say no all the time. Whereas like when you're trying to build community and build connections initially, you want to go here and you want to go there so people know who you are. So people feel
Mm-hmm.
safe to support you and or, work with you or collaborate, especially when you're like in a place where you're not from that place. And people are like,
Mm-hmm.
they have like what kids have, stranger danger.
Mm-hmm.
Which, believe it or not, being here 11 years, I still experience. It's like, you're not a native. It's like, I'm not the one here gentrifying. Like, I'm trying to, but people are people.
Oh,
But
that's real.
definitely saying no. And I always say that I try to do what I feel like doing.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm trying to create. I think that's important. Doing work that doesn't feel like work, just for the sake of your own mental health, is huge. All right, so let's talk about what your long-term vision is for Mocha Mic and also for your community work more broadly.
Yeah. So my long term goal of Mocha Mic with Millie is to one day have my own space because currently I'm nomadic and
Mm,
that's beautiful, but it can be a lot. It can be a lot to just go to different spaces because it's always just like a different setup. It's always like, all right, do I have to get vendors? Do I not have to get vendors? How can I like kind of be able to manage the event? It's always different.
mm,
And although that's beneficial because it showed me different ways that I can construct and or, like kind of like different forms of my mic. I don't know if that makes sense, but what like depend on the space I'm in, it can be a lot and that
mm-hmm,
can add to stress and fatigue. So having my own designated space or dedicated space would really help with just me having one consistent plan when I produce my mic. And I would really like to work on grants because I do like pay my performers, but I just believe an artist can pay for their time and getting paid
Yeah.
well. It is not easy to like be a poet, be a visual artist, be a, a singer, a rapper. It's just not easy because a lot of people just feel like they don't have to pay you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a big believer in people being paid for their time, whether it's a community event or just in any way that the person can be supported. I really am big into that because we need to be able to survive so we can wake up the next day and keep on moving. So definitely working on grants, designated space so I could also kind of switch the space up so it could be open to children for different programming.
Very cool.
Yeah, I would love that. And I also produced, I didn't mention this earlier, another series that's called Poetic Pages Where Black Poets Speak.
Mm-hmm.
And that is different than Mocha Mic with Millie because it's a Q&A and a panel discussion with published Black poets who have books. Yeah, and I created that because I found a lot of Black poets have books, but like you just don't know about it. And why don't we know about it? So it really just gives them an opportunity to just talk about their book, get it out there. And I'm just like, you have a book? Like that takes a lot of work. Like that should be celebrated. So yeah, I would love to just be able to continue to produce that in a bigger way. I'm going to have my fourth one in 2026. I'm excited for that. But
your fourth book?
No. Oh, no, I wish. No, my fourth time having Poetic Pages Where Black Poets Speak.
Got you. I was like, oh, wait, plug those. Got you.
No.
Very cool.
One day I'll have a book. Not now.
No, I'm sure. Very cool. That all sounds pretty amazing. What's one thing that you hope that people carry with them after going to one of your events?
That's such a great question. I hope that they carry the fact that they were seen and they were respected.
That's really huge.
Yeah. Because whenever I've gone into a space that like I didn't curate, I just remember, of course, how the event was, but how I felt. And I think that's really important, how we make people feel lasts. I always say one ripple of kindness can just change so much in the world. And I truly believe that that's so important. And that's just such a big piece of what I do. I hope they feel valued, especially since I do my events in primarily underserved communities, knowing that their zip code shouldn't limit their access to merriment and joy that they're deserving. So that was more than one, but
no, that's as many as you want to give. All right, so let's talk. Since you mentioned joy, how does joy or play a role in your creative practice?
So with the children programming, I focus a lot on children development. Mm-hmm. So I know that when I'm creating a program, that there are certain things that, like, let's say if it's like an art program, I have to think to myself, okay, maybe they won't want to sketch, but how can I, employ differentiated learning practices to scale it down in a way that they're going to be interested? And then I think to myself about how can this be fun, right? And how can this be different? I'm really big on trying to not make the workshops like school, but still having some structure.
Yeah.
So for some kids, and being a teacher for so long, I've seen some kids where they just like hated school for whatever reason. It just was not a place where they felt safe or they felt like respected or that they could be themselves. And I get it. We have standardized tests. There's not as much space to kind of be creative, especially the older they get. Mm-hmm. But I just think to myself, how can it be fun and how can they take from the experience something that they'd want to do again or that they can start doing? So a lot of like developmental, knowing a lot about their development. I pick my daughter's brain a lot because she's sick. So I'm kind of like, would you want to do this? Would this be fun?
Yes, you're surrounded by kids all day, every day.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing. It's a thing. But, they really bring me a lot of joy. And and working with them, I truly feel and know that I'm healing my inner child too.
That's real.
I come from an African background and my family's Ghanaian. So like,
cool.
It was different. It wasn't like as much like, yeah, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to explore, these sensory things and get messy. It's like, no, the house is clean.
Yeah, no, I had friends. I had friends whose parents were from Ghana when I was a kid, and it was like definitely the strict house when it was placed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, we going over to the house? All right, bet. No,
Yeah.
I feel you.
You already listen. But, it was a blessing too, because a lot of discipline and so many different things. But, early childhood is just looked at differently there. So I'm having a lot of fun along with them. And with adults, joy, as a Black woman, there's a lot of people who the whole world tries to tell Black women what to do, how to be, how to act, what's appropriate. From the top of our head to the bottom of our toes, we are told what to do from our own community, from other Black women. It just never ends or stops.
Mm-hmm.
So with my joy, it's definitely been factory reset and trying to find self-care. And that's with my, I bring that into Mocha Mic with Millie as well, because I always want people to reflect. With my wellness events, it's always about reflection. How can we reflect on what we've been taught, what we've been programmed to be, and how can we find and express who we truly are? So definitely a lot of reflection. It's funny, like at Mocha Mic with Millie, I would pass around a manifestation jar. So what do you want to manifest? So people would like write something down on like a Post-it, and then I would read it. And I'm like, it's in the universe. And later on, what I'm going to do with all these notes and burn it, I'm going to burn it. And now it's in the universe, And everyone's like, oh, wow, that's different. And I'm like, yeah, sometimes we have to write down what we want. We have to say it. Yeah.
That's huge.
I hope I answered your question.
No. I was just going to say, I think it's extra wild that like you didn't necessarily have the upbringing that you're providing for your child and for the other kids in your life as a teacher. And that's like, it's like people call them like, not that it's generational trauma having strict parents, but it is like changing a family lineage, kind of like your child is not going to know the way that you were brought up. And so then her child won't. I just think about that a lot. Like that's similar to like kind of how this was created for me, was just like, all right, how do I unlearn everything that I didn't like about what there was great things, but there were some things that was like, I don't want to repeat that. And I feel like a lot of people in my generation and our generation are kind of taking on that role of being like, no, like we're going to do things a bit differently than how we grew up, which I think is like super cool and super important work that people don't realize like how impactful that is. Like you're like, could potentially be changing generations down the line. So it's really cool.
Absolutely. And I mean, once I like learned that we hold so much trauma in our DNA that makes us susceptible to like illnesses and just so many different things, and once I realized that I'm carrying anger with me that like I am not releasing, also through work and therapy, which I think all of us need with someone who looks like us, is just so important. Because we recognize that like there's three different things. There's like the way that the world sees us, the way that, we see ourselves, and the way that we really are. Once we take down all of those like false narratives and all those, biased depictions.
Yeah. And all the masks that we wear to try to like fit into society. I think that's super real. And unpacking all of that is deep and important work. But I think what's cool about the way you're doing it is that you're doing it in a very like joyful, fun and creative way. And I think a lot of people, when they think about like trauma work, it just always feels like super heavy and something that you want to avoid. But it's like, no, the other side of that is just like inner child work. Like have fun, do what your inner child wanted to do. And that's equally as healing. And also therapy and all those things are super important as well. But just, something as simple as participating in an open mic, letting yourself go on stage, even if that's something you're always terrified to do, like that can be just as healing as, 5 hours of crying. So I think that's super important. All right. So to wrap up, are there any events or anything that you have coming up that you want to plug?
Yeah, definitely. So my next Mocha Mic with Millie is in 2 weeks, August 21st. It's at Bull Burger Bistro in Jersey City. In September, I have a children's event called Stretch and Sketch, which will be
Oh,
at West Bergen Branch Library. It's a great event. It's my third time doing it. And this event is where I fuse storytelling, yoga, and art. So I do some storytelling with the kids, then they do some yoga, kind of get their bodies loose, and then they do art. And that particular event was created because I just want the kids to know, like, listen, it's okay to have all these big emotions, right? I feel like kids are constantly being talked at, or being talked, at, and not really being talked to. And they have to learn how to emotionally regulate, and they have to learn that other ways that they can channel all these huge feelings. I feel like a lot of adults still need to learn that,
Yeah.
But they have so much fun. They do different art. I always try to make it different, not just always easels, but like using different materials so they can kind of think of art in different ways. That's September 12th. And then I'm taking a break from Mocha in September because I go back to working, and my daughter does. And I'm like, man, that's a lot to do in September.
So self-care break. That's important.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I want to go to other people's events. I don't always have the time because I'm like planning, and I believe a lot in reciprocity when I'm able to. So I'm going to like go to a few people's things. But the Mocha after that'll be in October 16th, because I have them every third Thursday.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, so those are my upcoming events. I'm very excited for them all. And yeah, I just hope that people come through and support. And thank you so much for having me on this beautiful platform. I really love the work you're doing. It's
Thank you for being here.
Amazing work.
Thank you. We're trying. Tell people your Instagram, where they can find out about your events so they can plug in when they want to go.
Definitely. So my Instagram is Mocha, Mocha, Mic, MIC, with WITH, Millie, MILLIE. So that's like primarily the open mic stuff and my other poetry things that happen, like if I'm published or, I had an event. And then the other page has the other events, still some poetry, but you'll see other things on Millicent, MILLICENT _ Ansah, ANSAH, number 24. That's the full government. So you can check me out there. But yeah, this has been so great.
Very cool. Yeah. And we'll plug that too in the show notes and have that in the caption, but some people don't read. So it's now out there in the ethers for everybody to check out Millie's work and everything that they're doing, and keep an eye out for the books that are soon to come, because that's now out in the universe. So it's soon to happen. And yeah, thank you so much for being here. Always, like, if you need anything or if you want to collab in any way, definitely out to support. I'm based in Philly, so we're not that far away.
Come through to Mocha, please.
No, I definitely, when you said the dates, I was like, oh yeah, I'll come by.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely down to support. That's what this is all about, is just building community. So thank you so much again.
Thank you.
And for everybody listening, thank you. And we'll be back next week. All right.
Thank you. Our vibes stay sacred. Our roots run deep.